What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show. We discuss everything going on here in our country that you need to know about on a daily basis, including the fourth stimulus package update, stimulus check update, and daily news. Money, investing, the stock market. We cover it all here on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure to click the subscribe button down below right now, as it's completely free to do so. And remember that new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thanks for hitting the like button for us as well. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Let me know if you're doing anything special for St. Patrick's Day. And are you drinking green beer today? Are you doing anything fun here today? Did you go to a parade here today or anything like that? Yeah, so let me know if you're doing anything special for St. Patrick's Day. I was thinking about dyeing my hair green today, but yeah, my wife definitely wouldn't let me do that. So yeah, maybe I'll dye Julian's hair, my son. Maybe I'll dye his hair green today. Yeah, so who knows? So yeah, let me know if you're doing anything fun for St. Patrick's Day. Let's jump right in because there's a lot of talk about stimulus checks because of how high inflation is. We'll be talking about that here today, and gas prices inflation. Here we go. Yahoo News reports that high gas prices prompt calls for tax breaks and stimulus checks. And we're seeing a lot of this. And remember, the Democrats have an actual bill to provide quarterly stimulus checks, which would be every 3 months, by potentially taxing the oil companies and giving part of the profits to the American consumers. Now, whether or not they actually tax the oil companies to do that, or they just provide another round of stimulus checks, this is exactly what is going on here, what they're calling for right now. And we're seeing this a lot from a lot of states right now. A lot of states are doing anti-inflation stimulus checks or gas breaks. Listen to what this says. Gas prices have soared since the beginning of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, adding extra pressure to consumers already dealing with higher costs at the pump after a year of rapid inflation. And it's only getting worse at this point. In response, the Biden administration has been aggressively exploring ways to make up for the loss of Russian oil imports, which the U.S. banned last week. Most experts, though, say there's little the president can do to substantially reduce gas prices in the short term. Well, maybe. They're also talking about getting rid of the federal gas tax, which is something they can do as well. Despite Republicans' calls to ramp up drilling in the U.S., economists say the limitations on domestic production are mostly market-driven, which is true, and that it would take months for new wells to start producing enough oil to affect supply levels. At the same time, green energy solutions championed by many Democrats are generally seen as long-term means of decreasing dependence on oil rather than a viable solution in the immediate future, which is true. With limited options for addressing the underlying supply issues, lawmakers have proposed a variety of potential ways to help Americans bear the burden of rising fuel costs. Maryland's governor and state legislature have agreed to a temporary suspension of state gas taxes, an idea that has been pitched in several other states at the federal level as well. California Governor Gavin Newsom recently floated the idea of a tax rebate, which probably would be a check or money, however they're going to do it, quote, to put money back in the pockets of the people struggling to afford high fuel costs. As you can see here, there's multiple different states doing programs like this. If you've been watching my show, we're reporting on all this. Some progressive Democrats have proposed creating a new system of regular stimulus checks funded by a steep tax on oil company profits. And that is this right here. Democrats unveil plan to issue quarterly checks. That would be a check every 3 months to Americans by taxing oil companies posting massive profits that they're currently gouging Americans on. They're making billions and billions of dollars more than the billions and billions of dollars that they normally make because of just gouging Americans, gouging Americans. The price of oil has come down dramatically. You can see here the price of oil has fallen below $100 and keeps falling. Oil fluctuates almost by the hour. You can see here the current market right now, WTI crude, there's multiple different kinds, but WTI crude is currently around $97 a barrel. Brent crude is right around $100 a barrel. Okay, this had peaked at 139, so almost 140. It's down to $100 a barrel. That's almost down 40%, 30 some percent, right? Okay, WTI crude is also down 30 some percent, right? These are down dramatically. These are down dramatically. Yet the national average price of gas is $4.30 a gallon. So it's barely coming down. It's only come down 3 or 4 cents from the high. So I mean, you look at these national averages here for the country. We're only down 3 cents from the high, the all-time high, which was hit just a few days ago. But the price of oil is down 30 some percent. So why isn't gas down 30%? Yeah. So, the problem is, people want to say it's Biden's fault. Some people are even saying it's Trump's fault. The reality of it is that oil is traded on a global scale. It's traded by oil futures. It's almost not traded on the stock market, kind of like. And these gas companies are the ones raking in the profits. Yeah. We'll go back to here. Why there's debate. Each of these proposals, to varying degrees, has supporters and detractors. There's general agreement, though, that any of them would mostly help along the margins, but that real relief for consumers won't come until gas prices drop. The logic behind a gas tax holiday is simple. If you don't tack extra taxes on top of the underlying costs, gas will be cheaper. The federal gas tax is about 18 cents per gallon, and state taxes range anywhere from 17 cents to 51 cents per gallon. Yeah, so when you combine those two, it can be as high as 70 cents or what is that, about 35 cents. So it can be 35 cents to 70 cents per gallon, depending on what state you're in. But skeptics say it's not certain that those savings would be passed on to consumers rather than to the oil industry and gas stations. There are also concerns that a tax holiday would sap funding from critical government programs like highway renewal projects. Proponents of this is why a direct stimulus check is honestly the better idea. I think most people listening to this are already figuring that out. Proponents of a direct stimulus, here we go, either through rebates or checks funded by taxing oil company profits, say this option is the best way to ensure that money goes straight to the people hardest hit by rising gas prices. Skeptics argue that any plan to disincentivize investment in oil production will only make the supply shortages last longer. Some environmentalists reject all these ideas because they argue each of them represents a step back from the ultimate goal of ending reliance on fossil fuels, which we're not going to be able to do completely. I mean, we're just not. Not for a long, long time. And even some factories run on gas. We're never going to have all cars not run on gas. It's just not realistic. Many say the best way to help Americans endure high gas prices is to do everything possible to limit how much people need to drive cars in the first place. And we can't do that either. Some people just have to drive. Some people have driving jobs. It's just, we have to be realistic here. Also, most experts expect a spike in fuel costs heading into the summer months. But many factors include the possibility of peace in Ukraine or another major wave of the pandemic could bring them back down. And actually, that's a cause of right now of why oil prices are coming down right now globally. Because remember, oil is traded globally. You can see here in China, 37 million people are on lockdown, including factories and businesses. So think about all the cars that aren't being used there and all the businesses that are shut down there because people are literally can't go to business there. It's a full lockdown. They can't leave their home. Only one person from each home can leave every 2 days only to go get food and necessities. They can't even go to work. I don't even know what they're doing for money. There has to be some type of government paycheck or something because or maybe their business is required to still pay their paychecks, but how the business is getting money, I don't even know. I'm not even going to take the time to look into China economics. It's not even worth my time. But yeah, so think about the price of oil alone is going down a little bit in part because China has 37 million people on lockdown. Can you imagine even going through that? Or I don't know, maybe their people are just starving and not able to pay their rent. Who knows? Who knows? And the article goes on to give a perspective on how each option may be good or bad. For example, a gas tax holiday may be the only realistic option to lower prices right away, saying if the fossil fuel companies somehow get Putin to end his war, I don't think the fossil fuel companies are going to be able to do it. Saying that big oil needs to get moving stat, but they don't have the ability. And gas prices are determined by the global cost of crude oil. What is doable? Suspending the gas tax. That's from the Boston Herald. Another perspective says funds from gas taxes are too important to the nation's long-term goals. The federal gas tax is a critical, though increasingly weak policy that Congress should bolster, not undermine. Suspending the gas tax would be another step towards breaking the linkage between how much people use the roads and what they pay to maintain them. That's from the Washington Post. Another one from The Nation says curbing corporate greed will help keep prices from rising unnecessarily. Why are gas prices up? Oil companies are engaging in profiteering, while working class Americans struggle to pay at the pump. Big oil revenues surge. So, I mean, that's true, but would it work? Would it work? But on the flip side, some people think that taxing profits would only make prices spike even more, but then they would be taxed even more. So, it's how it would work would be interesting, right? Tax rebates could help Americans shoulder rising costs for everything, not gas. The Los Angeles Times says a tax rebate is a good idea, but it must be applied broadly so that it helps all Californians. They're just talking about California because it's from Los Angeles, but everybody in the country could use it who is struggling. Calling it gas and groceries rebate, so everybody would be able to get behind it. Another one here says keep it simple and just send people money, aka a stimulus check. This is honestly the easiest idea. Families need help now. The fastest and most effective way to protect vulnerable citizens from the impact of global economic instability is to provide a direct payment through the IRS, similar to the 3 stimulus checks that were sent to families during the height of the pandemic. But unlike stimulus checks, these payments should be targeted directly to low and moderate income families, from CNN. Well, the stimulus checks did kind of do that. I mean, they went to people making $75,000 and under. You could maybe argue that people towards the high end of that maybe aren't low to middle income, but it really depends on where you live. I mean, if you live in Seattle, if you live in New York City, if you live in San Francisco, if you live in LA, if you live in Austin, if you live in any of those areas, $75,000 is not a lot. You live in New York City, 75,000 is not even enough to buy a place anywhere. Anywhere. You can't even buy a studio apartment on $75,000. Let's be realistic here. You live in Los Angeles, you can't buy a home on $75,000 a year. I mean, let's be realistic, guys. You live in Seattle, you can't buy a place on $75,000 a year. You live in San Francisco, or even in the suburbs of San Francisco, you can't buy a place for $75,000 a year. There's so many different cities across the United States that $75,000 a year is not even enough to even buy any type of place at all, even a one-bedroom place. So, I mean, realistically, the median and average income is over 50,000 now. It depends on the fluctuation, median and average and stuff. So 75,000, I mean, I know that they could lower that a little bit if they could, but realistically, would they want to cut out people just to save a little bit of money? My thought would be no. My thought would be no. My thought would be just help people. Just help people. I wouldn't want to see them cut out some people just to save a buck. I mean, remember, the national debt is at $30 trillion. It wouldn't make a difference if they went from 30 trillion to 29.95 trillion and they didn't send some stimulus checks to an extra 5% of people by lowering. It's not like stimulus checks went out to people making $200,000 or anything. We're talking about stimulus checks here. They went out to people making 75,000. So I'm all for it. I personally think just sending checks out to people and letting them decide how to spend the money is the best way. People want to use it for rent, let them use it for rent. They want to use it for gas. They want to use it for groceries. They want to use it for food. They want to use it on their child. They want to use it on their grandma. They want to use it for medicine. That's the best way. I mean, it's the easiest way. Honestly, it hits people's bank accounts 2 days later after they've passed the bill. I mean, people are on direct deposit with the IRS. Boom, the money goes out. If they have to wait on a paper check, we know that it takes a little bit longer. And it's not gimmicky. It's not gimmicky, right? I mean, we know that stimulus checks went out underneath Republican presidents, Trump, and Democratic presidents, Biden. So it's not a gimmicky. People don't feel like they're trying to buy a vote. I just feel like it's the easiest way. Trump sent out 2. If they send out a 4th one, Biden will have sent out 2. It just feels like even Steven, right? It feels like even Steven. And pandemic, inflation, it just feels right. It feels like it's needed. And remember that there's $800 billion of stimulus money that's already approved from stimulus package 1, 2, and 3. They could literally send this out without even adding to inflation or adding to the debt. That's the big thing here that most people that don't watch this show, if you asked somebody on the street, would they know that $800 billion is already passed, just sitting there? They would have no idea about this. They would have no idea that it wouldn't add to inflation and that it wouldn't add to the debt, and the money's just sitting there. And they could just send this out. Okay, now they'd have to explain this to people when they're sending out the check, and that it's anti-inflation checks, the money's already approved, it's not going to add to inflation, it's not going to add to national debt. They have to explain this to Joe Manchin, probably even. But I mean, people need help. 63% of people right now are living paycheck to paycheck and are behind on their bills and now with the price of gas, the price of inflation, the price of groceries, the price of all this stuff, the price of the war. I mean, because if you really think about it, the people that thought this isn't our war, think about how the price of that war is affecting us. If you really think about that, I think that you'll reconsider that statement. You'll reconsider that this isn't our war. It really kind of changes your mind on that statement. This isn't our war. It's if you kind of think about that, it's very, very different. And I made a statement the other day about how because I seen some comments. I want to kind of address this because it was some good feedback. It was some good feedback. I said how Hitler kind of caused us to go into World War II. And I seen a lot of comments saying, well, no, Jimmy, that's not really true. It was Japan and Pearl Harbor that did. And I was like, well, yeah, you're right. But remember that Hitler and Japan combining themselves, aligning themselves, and dragging us into that, right? That whole scenario there. I mean, if Hitler hadn't even have done all the things he did and took over, country after country after country, Japan wouldn't even have done that if they weren't aligned, right? It's like um, it, Japan was kind of like the Belarus of Russia, right? They were kind of like the Russia's ally, right? And it kind of makes you wonder, like, would China become Russia's ally in this? It kind of makes you wonder, and ultimately we had to go in to Germany to end it all. And we had to end it all with Japan. So really, Japan and Germany ultimately were the same battle, same battle. And I get, like I said, it was some good feedback because ultimately, you're right. Japan forced our hand, but if Japan never did that, it would have ultimately probably been the same outcome. We wouldn't have been able to stay out of that war. It was just, it almost looks like the same thing happening here. How if this Russia thing drags on, let's say it drags on for the rest of the year, how long do you think the world's going to be able to stay out of this? It just seems eerily similar. Now, I wasn't around back in 1942. I'm only 41 years old. But just, I'm a student of history. I like to, read about these things, learn about these things. It just seems eerily similar. You see what Putin wants to do. I don't know if he's going to be able to. He can't even take over Ukraine, let alone a couple cities. But the problem is the damage he's doing. And it doesn't look like he's going to stop. I mean, we all hope he does. But look at what he's doing to their country and to their people. Is he ever going to stop? Is the world just going to sit there and keep letting this go on for weeks, for months? And the world's just going to keep watching? I mean, not that we're watching, we're supplying them. But like I said, everybody's involved in a way. So let me know your thoughts here in the comments. I'll keep you up to date with everything. Remember, new videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure to click the subscribe button if you haven't yet. It's completely free to do so, so you don't miss out on new videos. I'll keep you up to date here with everything. You can click here to watch my newest video next, and you can click here to see how there's the details on the $3,600 gas stimulus checks. I had a video going over the details of it, or the potential that they could be $3,600. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.